If at any moment I ask a question and I want to receive your confirmation, so just this would be good to explain that you understand. If not, go like this. And then if you have something to ask at any moment, you can also raise your hand and hopefully I will see it. So welcome to Interplay. Okay, I am Tom here, and this is Rosé. She's also with me.
Hi.
I see that we look with the sun a little bit like angels, but maybe it fits the topic. If I might get annoyed and then I will change the angle, but I think for now we're good. So first of all, we will have two classes today and tomorrow. Each class will be about 3 hours. I think that for the topic and the content that we're going to deal with, the class will not be too much interactive. Probably around the middle, we will have a kind of a moment that will have a little bit of a discussion, and also at the end. But it's really important for me that in the topic that we're dealing with, you will have kind of a continuous journey. And therefore, I don't want to stop for questions or for comments too often. But anything that comes to your mind, and you can keep it, and then when we do the question session, the discussion, you can bring it. So anytime that question comes up, just write it in your notebook so it's prepared for you and you can bring it up later. The main topic of these two classes is interplay. Okay, so interplay is my definition of my improvisation practice. On a practical level, it is very important that the pragmatics of practicing improvisation means that we work a lot with open tasks, open concepts, and basically, let's say, durations of focus on a topic. And this can get quite abstract, this can get quite open, this can get even quite frustrating. What I recommend for you for the 2 days is that every time that we have an exercise or a task, stay in. Okay, if in the middle you feel you're not exactly sure what you're doing, you know, you have doubts, stay in. Okay, this kind of resilience to stay in despite confusion, boredom, paradoxes, or lack of understanding. This is the bread and butter of practicing improvisation, and being comfortable with doing things that you're not exactly sure about. So if you know, when I would teach another content and any moment of confusion or doubts, I would say, no, let's clarify it. Here, I already tell you in advance that a lot of things will be unclear. Okay, but this unclarity can be the biggest source of joy, inspiration, creativity, and so on when we deal with improvisation. So kind of combining the two, and it already sounds a little bit intimidating, but don't worry, is you know, write down your questions and stay in during the tasks. Okay, this is as far as pragmatics. Now, as far as the mental state, to kind of open up our story, our mutual dialogue about the topic, I want to tell a short story. This story, it probably is familiar to many of you, you know, but I think this story is an exercise in itself. And it's the story of a university teacher in Tokyo that he goes to do a study about a Zen monk. Okay, so this university teacher, he tells the Zen monk, okay, where would be the best place to have a conversation that I can continue my research? So he said, come over to my place and we can have tea. You know, very appropriate to a conversation about Zen. So he goes there to this little tea house, you know, in the middle of this beautiful garden. He sits down in front of the Zen master, and as the ceremony dictates, he waits to be served the tea. So the Zen master comes, he brings the teapot, he starts pouring the tea to the teacher, and little by little, the cup gets full, 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 and then it starts spilling. It is like, ah, what are you doing? You know, it's spilling on the floor. So he's like, my friend, before we start the conversation, I asked you to empty your cup because there is no conversation on Zen that can start from you having already tea in your cup, okay? And of course, after this moment, he doesn't go and throw the tea that he has in coffee, gently empty the cup, and then they're ready to begin the conversation. The idea that we're always starting from an empty cup is very, very critical to something like improvisation. What I'm bringing you is not a structured knowledge, and it's not some kind of a linear progression. It's more me recording my practice and sharing it with you. This practice is a practice of self-learning. So the only thing that you can do is have reflections or metaphors. But in order to experience this, we both need to come with a certain level of emptiness. Okay, so I think that kind of covering this, write down your question, stay inside the cup, stay inside the cup. It's not bad also, stay inside the cup. Stay inside the tasks and empty your cup. I think this would be kind of the three propositions or advices to start working with the content of this workshop. And let's start with the content itself now. So the whole idea of interplay is divided into two categories, is the ability to meditate and play. And each one of these ideas, meditation and play, is also divided into two subjects, gravity and consciousness. Okay, so not neither of those terms needs to come as a formula or as an explanation. Gravity, in our case, will be the sense of you sitting right now in front of the screen, sitting, standing, whatever it is that you're doing, and you feel a constant, gentle pull towards the ground. Everybody can feel it. Try to concentrate on it for a moment. You know, wherever you are, whatever position you are, regardless of your physical state, there is a constant downwards pull applied on yourself. This would be the gravity. It's all the time there, and we all the time want to meditate on it and play with it. Then the consciousness will be your awareness or your focus traveling throughout your body. So let's say you want to do an action, you want to move the mouse, the awareness travels to the palm of your hand. You move the mouse on the screen, you go back, you place it on the thigh, the awareness travels to your thigh, maybe travels to your eyes because you're looking at something, but this kind of traveling of focus throughout the body, and despite how good your awareness is, it's never an absolute thing. It's all the time traveling. So this will be what we call consciousness. So consciousness and gravity in the context of human movement, the gentle pull towards the ground and your mind traveling throughout the body. Okay, so this is kind of the building blocks of everything we're going to deal with. Let's start now seeing the particular research that we can do in order to understand better the relationship that each one of us have with these ideas. Okay, so let's begin first of all with the consciousness, the idea of the consciousness. The first thing that I think that is the first tool to connect more to this sensation of your mind traveling throughout your body is your breath. Okay, so the synchronization of breath and movement is already something that points towards how can we be more aware to where is our mind when we move. So I want to start with a very simple task, okay? The task will be divided into 3 songs. In the first song, I want you just to sit and basically pay attention to your breath. As you're paying attention to your breath, try to notice where is your awareness traveling? You know, where is it in the body? Okay, is it moving? Is it in one place? If you change the breath, does your consciousness travel differently? And any question that comes just from sitting and paying attention to your breath. Second song, I want you to do the same thing while standing. So you stand and you repeat the same list or the same questions. Okay, you're paying attention to your breath. Where is my awareness? Where is it in the body? Okay. It might be that it also will open up more about the other topic of gravity, whatever it is. And then in the third song, then I want you to move freely with those questions in mind. So keep on the idea of paying attention to the breath and seeing where is your awareness, where is your consciousness as you move freely in the space. Okay? So first song, sitting. Second song, standing. Third song, moving freely. And in all of those, the common topic is the attention to the breath and how the breath affects your awareness or your consciousness. Is that clear? Good. Everybody have the playlist? Yes. So we're gonna start from the beginning. Playlist for the first day, first song, second song, third song. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so if you didn't finish, take 10, 20 more seconds to come back. Okay. Okay, I see already that came up a question if the eyes should be open or closed. In general, in all the tasks, this is totally up to you. Okay, you can every once in a while experiment with eyes open, eyes closed. We don't have here any preference. For me today, I feel I'm in an eyes open day. I don't know why. This is kind of my feeling for today, but feel free with this. Again, you know, in improvisation, I wouldn't necessarily direct unless we are focusing on the eyes. And for now, we're focusing on something more global. So it's up to you.
Or if there is more people.
Or if there's more people. If there's more people in the space, I think it's better to open the eyes just to avoid the accidents. Okay, or if there's walls close. Anyways, you get the idea. So this, the breath and the awareness to the breath and how the breath kind of leads us to this, where is the mind in the body? And it will be kind of the most fundamental element, okay? This is what always is always something to play with, is always something to meditate on. And I want even to refine it more, okay? So basically, I think that there is a very interesting idea about creation that is called intelletto, okay? Intelletto is not connected to intellect, not that at least not in the context where I picked it from. And basically, intelletto is kind of like the skill of recognizing the possibility of art, okay? So it is very kind of a famous kind of a idea that is a lot connected to the artist Michelangelo of the Renaissance period. While most of the other artists in this period, including Leonardo da Vinci, they were talking about concetto. Concetto is basically the form of creation. So Leonardo da Vinci and his buddies were saying, we look at nature, we look at God, and then we look at material, and we turn it in the form of nature of God. So inspired by God, inspired by nature, we take canvas, something, whatever it is that they're working with, and we kind of, inspired by this, we make a concetto, which is, we make a form that is inspired by God or nature. And Michelangelo, that he was more avant-garde, he was kind of the bad boy, and he was basically saying, I don't focus on the concetto. The concetto is the consequence. I focus on the intelletto. Why? Because the form was always hidden inside the material. I just reveal it, you know? So of course, Michelangelo's context was very much connected, even though he was great at all, he was doing everything great, but like in sculpting. And then the sculpture was always hidden in the clay or in the rock or in the whatever it is. My intelletto is me recognizing it and letting it out and freeing it from the raw material. Now, this idea is not, sorry, by the way, Michelangelo, just to be precise, marble. Okay, that was kind of, he spoke in the context of marble always. Inside the marble, there's a hidden sculpture. I'm just releasing it. And then Nachmanovich, which is a guy that wrote a wonderful book about improvisation that's called Free Play, this idea, and he said, if you think about music, the intelletto of music is connected to raw material of time. So when musicians see raw time, and he sees the potential of art inside it, okay, which is a beautiful thought, you know, what musicians worked with time, you know, and then depends on their skill, they can kind of take out the creations that's trapped inside a piece of raw time, okay? Now me, humbly, because I put myself with Michelangelo and with Nachmanovich, so I don't want it to sound too much arrogant, so I'm saying humbly, I'm adding a proposition to these lads. I propose that for a mover, the raw material is the breath. We will breathe yes or yes, but what hidden concerto, what hidden art is kind of inside the raw breath? And do we have intelletto to see this potential? Okay. So I want, with this in mind, so it's almost like we're trying to even refine it further, to do another just one song with the same thing that we did, with this combination of movement and breath. And thinking about this, in every raw breath, there's a hidden movement that is a glorious piece of art. You know, it's personal, you know, because again, you know, it's like each artist has their own styles, tools, a life experience, circumstances, whatever, you know, references. So it doesn't have to be in any form, but there is a form that only I can see, only you can see, and it's hidden in a raw breath. Okay, so let's see if we take it even further, what happens. So song number 4 in the playlist, with kind of using again the breath, but now with this awareness to the intelletto inspired by Michelangelo. Okay, song number 4. Okay, people, and a few more seconds to come back. Yeah. Okay, now moving on with this idea, we also don't want to let it go. Okay, so keep it in mind with everything that we do. I think that another small kind of a small metaphor that is worth to keep here, with the idea of the intelletto of time, and kind of like, you know, what are the possibilities of a fixed amount of time. So, for example, there is, and it's not that I'm kind of provoking for it, but a very interesting idea that really clarifies this time and the possibility of time is cigarettes. You know, so I don't know if how many of you have worked or been friends with smokers, but it's very interesting, you know, how smokers treat a cigarette. A cigarette is kind of like, you know, it's a small raw piece of time. And there's always the freedom to do something with it, you know, to meditate, to look outside, to have many times a relaxed conversation rather than a formal conversation. And it's like, you know, it's in advance, it's something that is like, you know, you get this. This is the raw time of the cigarette. Now, little by little, you see it running out. What are you going to create with it? Okay. And of course, there's, if again, I don't know how many people here are smoker or not, doesn't matter, but like people, you know, this is why people love it. Okay. They love the cigarette. So I think that this is something that's interesting and worth kind of like keeping just as a metaphor. Okay. A raw piece of time, similar to a cigarette. Let's continue now, and let's a little bit move on to the idea of a bit more tackle the idea of play.
I can search the web for that. Oh, just tap the...
No. Sorry. Tackle the idea of play. So in general, I think that there is a very, very interesting phrase, a very interesting concept in the context of play within creativity. And this is the Indian concept of Leela, which is kind of like the divine play, okay? The play of the universe, okay? And so on. Although I do think that this idea is sometimes taken out of context without something that's complementary, very important for it, and that's the tradition of Advaita Vedanta. Okay, Advaita Vedanta is some kind of a branch of Hindu philosophy that is basically says that the self is the freedom and everything that it encounters with is illusion. And basically, within this way of thinking, it moves in between two illusion in a playful manner, okay? Now, it doesn't need to be developed or articulated or clarified too much in our context, but there is a nice lesson to extract here that basically in order to make a play, we need to create certain restrictions, certain limitations, certain illusion, and then move freely around them, between them, above them, below them, sometimes through them, okay? But this kind of freedom with creating structure, frame, an illusionary one, but a necessary one, this can be very inspiring, okay? And I'm referencing here the Advaita Vedanta and the Leela. So we agree, especially after moving so beautifully with the breath, that we are absolute freedom in our existence on this earth. So let's break a small limitation, structure, constraint. This will be a tennis ball, okay? So what I want that we do now is very, very simple. I want that we will take one song, just considering the action of throwing the ball, okay? So basically, the basic idea will be that I want to have some kind of a stillness, some kind of a quiet when I hold the ball. Then I connect to the weight, the gravity of it. I start a movement that will end with releasing it. I catch it again into movement and come to stillness again. Okay, this is kind of an elaborated example. Of course, it can be done a bit more simple or mundane, or it can be done much more elaborated. As it is with improvisation, all options are free. You now can discover it in the, throughout the song. So this is for the first song. Clear? Clear, clear, clear? Good. Second song, I want you to do the same thing, but instead of throwing the ball, I want you to bounce the ball. So same idea, starting from silence, movement, that ends with releasing the ball, catching it again, bringing the gravity back to quiet and stillness. Also here, can be done a bit more simply, or it can be done in a much more elaborated way. Okay? So we're gonna try just these two exercises with the next two songs on the list. Let me just make sure that we're in the right track with the music. Yes. Now, also another point to consider, something very, very important to the idea of improvisation is, of course, we will work a lot with music, okay? Every musical choice here has an idea behind it, okay? Now, of course, it might be that you, in the place that you are in the world, in whatever it is, that the music doesn't really, the idea behind the music doesn't come through, whatever. If you don't feel inspired by my proposition of music, let it run in the background and use it just as a cigarette. Use it just as a time frame, you know? But if something click and, you know, all of a sudden you understand why the ball will connect now to Son de la Frontera, please, you know, exploit it. Okay? Yes, I see just one question. Can you please confirm the name of the song? Yes. So basically we are in songs number 5 and 6. So we will have Son de la Frontera, El Jardín del, what is it? El Jardín de la Alegría. El Jardín de la Alegría. And after this, it will be All Right by D'Angelo. Okay, for the bouncing. Clear, people? Everybody still with us? Let's do it. Okay, people, so start coming back. Okay, too much fun. Fun is good, people. I just want, we will continue a bit more, and then, you know, we will soon have a first Q&A before we will change topic. But did you feel that the breath was helping you? Do like this if it was that, you know, we had like awareness to the breath. Did you feel that you were using it or not? Do like this. If not, it's totally fine, you know. Okay. So, for example, no, it's good. It's good. It's good to know. I think also, like, you know, because we have here a little bit of the, you know, there is a question, you know, when gravity takes over, you know, is there even a place for consciousness? Even if there's a place for awareness. So usually, you know, what I like to do with myself is that the moments that are like quiet, and this is why I say we have here every movement starts from quiet, goes into an action. Ideally, I'm so engaged in the fun, in the play, that my consciousness leaves the body, go to the ball, and comes back to my body and come back to quiet again. The moment of quiet is where I must intuitively go to the breath. Okay. So I think here there's kind of, it's almost like it's a skill to develop. It's an improvised skill. Can you find moments that there's quiet and you breathe, bam, and then, like, you know, you let go, you go back into intuition, you go back to the ball, you go back to the music, you go back to the bounce, you go back to gravity, you know? But essentially, you know, it's not a cliche that every movement has to start from stillness and ends with stillness. You know, we're just like talking about durations. So can you make this moment of stillness the moment that you are aware of your breath, that you are using this as kind of like, you know, an underlying layer, okay? And of course, the more complicated, the more, you know, the more things we have to react to, these moments get smaller and smaller, but they never disappear. You can always have a micro meditation within the play. Okay. So is that clear? Now, of course, again, it's very important also with improvisation to say, like, you know, to always say, okay, you know, next time I try it, you know, next time I want to do it better. Next time I want to focus on something else. You know, no pasa nada, nothing is absolute. So, like, you know, you didn't notice this time, maybe, you know, next time you try and you notice. Okay, it's really not like kind of a big deal. So basically what I want to do, I want to a little bit like, you know, we did this throwing and catching. Okay. And there's a lot of theories that all human gestures can be divided into throwing and catching, you know, giving and receiving, placing and taking, you know, and so on and so on. So we opened up the possibility to release ourselves into the space with the hand, or to take from the space into ourselves. Okay. Of course, it's very general. I just want to point out another possibility of what we can learn from the ball. And I want now to stay with the same topic, but to go to the legs. Now, the legs are less of a tool for gestures, and they're more a tool for locomotion. Okay, generally speaking. So I want to kind of to do two things with the legs. So the first one, I want to use the pencil instead of the ball. Okay, and the basic idea would be that instead of locomoting, I will come closer. Yeah. More. Instead of locomoting myself, I'm going to try to locomote the pencil. So all of my movement will be connected to picking it up and placing it around me. So if I move the pencil away from me, I can also go to the pencil. If I move the pencil behind me, I can walk back to it. Okay? Also, another option, maybe we'll come even closer. Another option, when the picking up and placing becomes a bit tiring, I can also experiment with kind of rolling it and bringing it with me through rolling it. After I finished locomoting the pencil, I replaced the pencil with the ball. Okay, then same idea, very simple. I locomote the ball in the space around me. Only that now, if I want, I can use also the head. So moving the ball, and if I want, I can also experiment with locomoting it with the head.
So basically, it's feet and head.
Yes,
no
in the second song. Okay, is that clear? So first song, pencil moves around. Second song, ball moves around, and we kind of making a fugue. Fugue is a term we will elaborate a little bit later, that we can also use the ball, the head, to locomote the ball, okay? First song, pencil, just with the feet. Second song, feet and head, the ball. And now we're kind of shifting the awareness. What does it mean to take all of this topic and changing from gestures to locomotion, to body moving in the space, rather than taking and receiving to the space? Are we good? Great. I want to use the same two songs that we use now. Okay, so starting with the Jardín and moving on to D'Angelo. Let's do it. Okay, people, let's start coming back. Okay. How was it? Did it make sense? Make sense? Made sense? Okay. We are still, we're still in a phase that we're still kind of, let's say, we're getting to know each other in the context of interplay. Okay, there's a very nice, I studied a little bit of craniosacral therapeutic methods, and they have a wonderful term that is called establishing a perceptive presence. So you kind of come to a space and you establish, what you perceive. And by establishing what you perceive, you're establishing your presence. So there's establishing a presence of, somebody can, again, every context, you need to pick up different things, to be aware of different things. So all of the things that we're doing now, we're still in the realm of establishing a perceptive presence. We're not yet improvising, okay? Which we'll get there in a moment, I promise. And I kind of want to do kind of a last exercise that this will be kind of the transition between establishing a perceptive presence and then we'll move more into kind of like the idea of improvisation. And this will be basically to treat the ball and the no ball freely. So in the first song, you can do whatever you want with the ball, okay? Two interesting openings that I can give you. So there is a very interesting kind of, if we speak about like kind of gravity and consciousness. So if you hold the ball and you throw it and you catch it, it feels as if the velocity of the ball changed. It's like the ball, when I catch it, is heavier than when I threw it, or bigger than when I threw it. Try it for a moment, hold it. Hold the ball for a moment, throw it and catch it. And try to feel the different perception of the ball, the moment of the throwing, the moment of the catching. It's almost like it's a different ball if you're really, really sensitive. It feels different, the moment of the throwing, the moment of catching. Now, there is also, on the other hand, there is the truth that the ball is the ball, nothing changes. So you have this already kind of like, what's my, what am I perceiving? I'm perceiving the change, or I'm perceiving the truth that is the same, okay? So you can establish this in each practice. You know what I'm saying? It's totally up for choice. Then another thing, when I used to do a lot of Buto, we used to work with a lot of objects. And to summarize, which is it's almost impossible to summarize years of Buto training, but it's like, it all can go down to imagine that the ball is the meaning of your life. Now improvise, okay? This is like all the exercise, they kind of go down to this. Let's see what happens now, okay? So in the first song, and of course, what I gave now, all the exercises that they're totally just exercises of establishing perception, how I can locomote the ball, what gestures I can do, what's the difference between being the ball with stillness, being the ball in an action, and so on and so on. So you can also go, and it can be simple, nobody has to kind of force the meaning of life on everything. But what I'm saying is that it's totally up to you. One song, one cigarette, that you and the ball can become anything. Immediately after, second song, you place the ball in a place, in a space, in your space. Now, it's important for me that you don't just throw it. You place it somewhere. You can place it in the center. You can place it in the sun. You place it somewhere, wherever it is. And then you have one more song of echo, reflecting on what you did in the first song, without the ball. Okay? So also here, just a little bit, so it doesn't get too abstract, you can just place the ball in the center because you feel it's central to you. And then you do the second song, throwing and catching and locomoting an imaginary ball. Okay, you can place it in the side because you felt you've had enough. And then you go on and you just dance with the music because you learned what you needed to learn from the ball and now you're free. Whatever. Okay, but what's important for me that is in the first song, you start to open up the possibilities of improvising with the ball. Then in the second song, you continue the journey by placing it and continuing in reflection to what happened in the first song, but without it. Is it clear? Go like this if it's clear. Wow, I survived it. Okay, nice. Well done, Tom. So we'll have two songs, okay? We're first one with the ball, second one without. I will say the name of the songs. So we're gonna jump two songs and we're gonna go Be Svensson, between smile and a tear. Right, I will write it. This will be the first one. And I mean, between a smile and a tear or a tear. And then it continues the next one after it, which is The Will to Death by John Frusciante. Okay, but it continues automatically in the playlist. Yes? Okay, people, let's do it. And after this, we'll have a small question answers and a small break. Let's try. Okay, people. So slowly come back. Let's see if we can do a little bit of this. Okay. So if I think it's a good moment to a little bit hear if there are a few questions that you want to ask or anything that you want to share with the group that you think is relevant or valuable. We're not going to stay too long, so maybe kind of between 3 to 5 voices. So I think if you have something to share or ask, you can raise your hand. And yes, so let's begin with Klaus. Unmute yourself.
Mm-hmm. So I had a thought about if you can say something about structured versus chaotic breath, or
structure versus chaotic breath.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I have to say that I didn't really think about the idea of chaotic breath. Okay, I feel that I never thought about it like this. So I'm not sure that I have something relevant to say about this, to be honest. I would say though that just from the top of my head, I don't think that the opposite of structure is chaos. Okay, so this would be already, and I feel that this understanding in the context of breath is very important. I'm not sure about the possibility of chaotic breath even existing. Maybe, again, I need to think about it. I don't want to, from the top of my head, I say, chaotic breath, does it even make sense? We can be aware of the breath or not aware of the breath. That's the only thing that I can say for sure. Okay. But if I'm not aware of the breath, does it mean that, it's structured? There is kind of a gap between these terms that I cannot exactly connect. I will think about it. About chaos in general, and going back to this is what I can say, that I think that thinking about structure and chaos as two duality is also problematic because in general, chaos needs a structure. That's from my little bit of science that I have. There's a wonderful book about it. I think Neil Gaiman. And ideally, chaos means structure, repetitive structure even, that the force that applies on it is so strong over such a long time that you cannot speculate how it will change. So that's kind of, so in a way, structure and chaos, they're not opposite, they're dependent. If you don't have structures, you don't have chaos. And usually I don't think that I can kind of apply these ideas to everything personally, again. So that was kind of like me avoiding your question. Okay, mostly, please respectfully avoiding your question. I did a disclaimer, I didn't think about it enough. I gave my 2 cents about structure and chaos. About breath, I'm saying aware and not aware. And maybe one last point to mention, I think that I think that it's important to kind of experience, how do you practice and what is unaware and what aware breath, what both of them give you, and what do you connect with? So in that sense, maybe structured and chaotic breath, I'm game. Let's see what we can make out of both of them. Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Trip. Yes, please. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, I had a question. I'm finding that following the breath, I'm being tracked by its tempo, and I'm curious to hear you comment on other ways in which breath plays into it rather than just like expand on the thing and then move and fall into motion on the exhale or something like that.
Interesting. Look again, the breath, maybe, I brought it as something that is there. It's there regardless. Like, we breathe. Maybe we suspend it, maybe we pause it, maybe we elongate it, maybe we shorten it, maybe we are aware, or maybe we're not aware. Okay. All of those are kind of possibilities of of experiences of the breath. What I am kind of saying is that because it is always there, that's always something you can play with and meditate with. Okay. Now, without speculating too much on how you use the breath, what I can say usually from my experience with interacting with people who work with their bodies, they have a lot of preconceptions of what it is a good, not good, coherent, not coherent, fluent, not fluent way of breathing. Okay, so you know, if we go to a yoga class, there is like kind of the idea of how do we synchronize a movement into a position and the breath. If we go to a boxing class, there's kind of the skill of very, very short and kind of precise breathing together with very, very bouncy movement. Which is better? There is no better, you know, both are possibilities. They have nothing in common probably, or the only thing they have in common is the most important thing, the breath itself, you know, but all options are open. You know, we can do any type of movement, we take any type of breath eventually. You know, even if you talk to me like, you know, 3 years ago, I would have tell you, when you throw a ball, you must exhale. That's the only option of really throwing, you know, until I met people who throw without exhaling. And what? So who is right? Who is right? Nobody's right, you know. Therefore, I think that the use of it, meditative and playful, this is kind of the two best ways to approach it, and kind of nada más, and not even more than this. No, I'm really sad. Usually I'm aware of my breath and I'm not so much playful about it. I'm meditating on it. You know, I'm like, horrible sadness. I don't know, like, you know, somebody close to me died. What does it do to my breath? Then we start going with the ball. I get super excited. You know, I'm like a kid with the ball. And then I'm like, okay, you know, if I don't use my breath, my play will end quickly. You know, so there will be playful breath, there will be meditative breath. An example out of my head, in my experience, you know, somebody can have totally different experience. But further than this, I don't think that it's too much inspiring in our context to go further. And to be honest, again, when I was a bit younger, I would tell you what's, you know, according to my experience, what's the right breath in a backflip. Nowadays, I will avoid it, you know, because I would just tell you that I'm meditating and playing with the way that I breathe while doing a backflip. And I have a study on this, a personal self-study. But I would tell you, but you will waste time if you take my advice on this topic, you know, kind of go get your own type of thing, just because you will benefit more. Okay. So, and it's important. It's a good question, Trip, and like combining the two things. Pay attention, people. I'm not proposing here any methodology. You know, I'm not proposing here any technique. I'm proposing it awareness. Okay. And again, nada más, awareness and observation. That's it. And then we go back to our, you know, whatever it is that we're doing. It's okay, Trip.
Yeah, I was just curious to hear another way of thinking about it.
Okay, cool.
Expand
like,
my
you
research.
can say, yes.
Yeah.
Second question I'm kind of avoiding. Okay, let's see how far we go. I limit myself to avoiding 4 questions. You know, so I'm joking. Anyone else? Anything you want to share or ask so far? Yes, Charlie.
Ahora. More of a comment, and it was the last 2 improv tasks. After having improvised with the ball and then placing it, in my case, I put it a bit on the side of where it was moving. I kind of had this constant sensation of being observed by the ball, which maybe I thought it wouldn't have happened if we didn't do the first task of first improvising with the ball. So I kind of bonded with the object in a weird way. When the second task, I really felt it was like looking at me. I don't know, maybe I just made it up, but again, I wouldn't have had that if we wouldn't have done the first task first. So found that rather interesting.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Okay, last one. Yes, Brady.
Yeah, I have an interesting comment as well. For me, I found that the first task, having the concrete object in my hand and the multiple different opportunities we explored, I started to notice that, I know for me personally, it started to take on a deeper meaning with regards to, like, when I put the ball down, there was still that limitation that we place. I don't want to say limitation, but the rule, so to speak, of the ball being the parameter that we work within. But it slightly expanded because when the ball wasn't in my hand anymore, it was still like that first task. For me personally, I noticed the way I used my neck was a lot differently. The freedom, the range of movement was was expanded a lot more for me. And I was acting as if I was still using the ball, playing with the ball, exploring the ball as if it was there. I just found that really fascinating. It expanded, it expanded the practice a lot for me and gave me a totally different take on, oh man, it's hard to put in words. I don't know if any of that's like making sense at all to you, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna definitely explore it more. Thank you.
Totally makes sense. Of course, that again, there is something, and again, we'll get to this, once the improvisation, I think it can even expand more the possibilities. But, the idea of the play is not, when we give up improvement, we give up achievement, we give up, we basically give up any context except for the context of ourselves. There's very interesting relationships. People in general are extremely creative. They have like tons of things, to embody, tons of relationships, because you're talking about different relationships that came up, and that's kind of the idea of improvisation, that you don't want to come and bring, kind of relationship that's like, that is your go-to. It's your automatic. You want to bring a relationship that is so, is so direct that on your daily life, you don't deal with it. That's kind of that's the greatest freedom of the practice, that it gives you the space of relationships that are not embodied in, again, in the daily things, in the mundane things, in the routines, in the techniques, in the rituals, in the progressions. So I think this is a little bit what you're describing. And I think that, again, my only advice is that, like, there's even more, what more can you make out of it? But thank you for sharing. I wanted at this moment, because I think that, here we start also hearing just like these four people that spoke. I see that we're in a good path. Okay, so there's some kind of questions coming up about the practicalities that, the breath was kind of the first practicality. And also there's a little bit already, we're starting to be open to relationships. Okay, and let's take a short break at this moment, just like, let's say 5 minutes maximum, so you can refresh, water, restroom, whatever you need. And then we come back and we start to kind of take further the idea of improvisation. Okay, so 5 minutes break, and then we continue. Okay, people, let's come back. Okay, so so now I want that we will take kind of, so we opened up, meditation on consciousness and gravity. We open up a little bit the play with consciousness of gravity. And I want that we start to deal with the idea of improvisation. And this is the space, the improvised space is where we can interplay with these things. So basically, I will follow kind of two, of course, that improvisation, when I was collecting both my notes and my references, all the great teachers of improvisation, they always say at the end that it's basically about inventing your own system, that there's nothing to learn and all of this. But of course, that I think that there is room for pedagogy, and it shouldn't be taken too serious, but it can definitely inspire and show things that we didn't think about before. And for me personally, actually, the two places where I feel that the body of knowledge is the most relevant improvisation is in theater improvisation, which is mostly, you can imagine kind of comedy, improvised theatrical comedy, and music appreciation. So both of these bodies of knowledge is places where we can get a lot of kind of tools to inspire and consider things that we don't know. I will use both of those as metaphors for movement, because movement is kind of that movement and breath, that's kind of our raw material. And we'll try to see what we can make out of it. It's 2 days, so it's short. For example, musical appreciation, rhythm, flow, fugues, etudes, is all things that I wanted to share with you. Let's see how far we go. But let's start actually from the idea of the theatrical idea of improvisation. So in general, there's kind of one golden rule of improvisation in theater. This golden rule is say yes, okay? So, it's very easy and very simple. And I don't know how many of you study theater or improvisation in theater, but this example is kind of like the oldest example in the book. I hope that it will be original with the most of you. But how do I demonstrate this idea of saying yes? I will use Rosé. Rosé, do you want to improvise together?
Yes.
Do you want this improvisation to be based on movement?
Yes.
Do you want that we will do the most amazing movements that these people have ever seen in their lives?
Yes.
Do you want that then we take these amazing movements, turn it into a performance?
Yes.
Do you want that we sell this performance and become millionaires?
Yes.
And then do you want that we take all of these millions and give it to all the hungry kids in the world?
Yes.
Okay, that was pretty exciting. I really think this was pretty exciting. Now, to everything that I ask you, say no. Rosé, do you want that we improvise together?
No.
Story is over, okay? That's it. That's the kind of, it's, I swear to God, I've never did a theatrical improvisation class that didn't open with this demonstration. I give it to all of you. If you want to teach improvisation, always open like this. Is quite precise, okay? So we start improvising with the body. Once we start saying no, play is over, okay? We say yes, things can develop, and we don't know. I didn't know at the beginning of this play that we will at the end give millions to hungry kids around the world. Okay, so things can happen. Amazing things can happen. Now, if we differentiate, now I gave you the theory. So what's the skill? Why not anybody can stand on stage and do these great improvised lines and whatever it is that the great actors do? And because the skill is not only to say yes, is to say yes and. Okay, so in theory, now it was like an easy example, but to each question, Rosé, do you want that we improvise together? And it would be yes, and I want that we will also take off our clothes. Okay, boom, we're totally in a different world now. Okay, that's supposedly the skill, to learn to use the yes and. Now, the task that I'm going to give you now can be a little bit challenging, especially for people who are not used to kind of use the voice again. I now want to use it just as an inspiration. Don't get too kind of judgmental about yourself. Really just like, you know, use it as another, like we use the ball. Okay. You don't need to kind of be, it doesn't need to be important. It doesn't need to be good. It's for the ball. We are talking about improvisation in movement. What's the problem in movement in relation to theater? That in movement, we need to work with a lot of self-practice and without clear words, like the words of language. So instead of using dialogue like me and Rosé now used, which it's again more theater, more clowning, we need to use our internal dialogue. Okay, so great improvisers are very connected to the internal dialogue that they experience when they move. They tell things to themselves and they say yes and to themselves. Okay, and this will be the next exercise. I want you to kind of basically talk to yourself. Okay, fortunately we're on Zoom and you will mute yourself so nobody will hear. So you will talk to yourself as if you are two different, in my case, two different Toms. Okay, Tom A and Tom B. And Tom A and Tom B are having a dialogue and they want to try to answer each other with a yes and. Okay, I want you also to accompany this internal dialogue with movements. You don't need to worry about trying to match or not match the movement. It can be totally, you know, just to free the body as you talk, or things that are very connected to what you say. Okay, very short demonstration because I really don't want you to imitate what I do. I want you to kind of explore it on yourself. So I start. Tom, did you see the weather today? Yes, it's pretty shitty for Barcelona, but I guess it's good that we're having a workshop inside the studio. Did you look at the ceiling in the studio? Yes, and it's pretty inspiring. It seems like it's being built very, very, very slowly. A lot of wood, which people don't usually use. Why do you think people don't usually use wood? I think it's because it's a material that decays a bit quickly. And also, something that you cannot make in machines. Are you sure? I don't know, but it inspires me, so I'm using this thought. What do you think about it? I think it doesn't matter as long as it keeps me warm. Does it keep you warm? Yes, it keeps me warm and inspired. Okay, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, doesn't need to make any sense. It doesn't need to be anything clever, funny, genius. Let out the internal dialogue. Okay, and pay attention to the idea of saying yes and. I kind of did a small spoiler, so I will already say it. Of course, that aside from the yes and, there's also the idea of questions. You can open up this space for improvisation by asking questions or by saying yes and. Since I already used it, I think it's also fair that you also use it on your own a little bit. Okay, so take some time, a couple of minutes, just to experiment with this, and then we'll come back and contextualize it. Clear? Let's try. Okay, people, so finish the conversation politely and come back. Okay, good. If you have, again, this now is getting very important. If you have questions, write them, okay? Because I think now we start talking about internal dialogues. The lunatic house is open, so it's a lot of questions can come up and questions are opening. Now, this internal dialogue, this is the theme of the improvisation, okay? This is the connection between theater and music. Music has always, you know, nowadays people think in classical music, they didn't improvise. They only improvised. They improvised and wrote it, just like in any other place. Internal dialogue is the theme. Once we have a theme, we start to work with it. In jazz, in anything, okay? Again, this is the, and it's very important to understand that you have endless possibilities of themes, okay? We'll see with it in a moment, how do we kind of extract it to movement. But before, we need to understand now how we kind of minimize or deconstruct the theme, okay? Because this would be kind of half of the process of staying only with the movement. So similar to what I did now, I'm continuing to have the internal dialogue, only that every time, instead of a question or a yes and, I leave only a word, okay? So if now it would be like, you know, Tom, you want to teach this workshop naked and with sunglasses? Instead of this, I will do sunglasses. The answer to be yes, and I will think also this will be a very good concept for future workshops. The answer will be good concept, okay? So the conversation kind of minimized into sunglasses, good concept. Up, like a lizard. My tail, playing with balls. Okay? So I'm still going through the same conversation, only I'm letting out only one. It can be a word, it can be like, you know, also 3 words if you feel, you know, kind of one thing out of each person's turn of speaking. Okay? By the way, of course, that I see some people doing this workshop in couples. If you're in couple and it makes sense for you, you can also do it in pairs. You know, the same exercise in pairs is, you know, you don't work the internal dialogue, but you have a little bit of a different balance between the play and the meditation. Okay, so this is also possible. But regardless if you do it now, personal or in pairs, try to deconstruct each kind of each sentence, each question, each answer into something a bit more minimalistic, while not taking out the volume of the movement. Okay, is it clear? Clear, people? If it's not clear, go like this. Clear, clear, clear. Okay. Okay, so let's try a few minutes with this. Let's see what happens. Okay, people, start coming back. We will. Okay, now very, very important when we work like this, okay? Very important. Trust your ability to move, okay? Whatever this kind of internal dialogue, whatever type of movement is, it triggers, this is your improvisation and you're in the right path. You know, there is here a certain combination of interest and trust in your internal dialogue that you need to kind of, you know, exploit in the session of the improvisation. So it's very, very common that, like, you know, you start with a certain internal dialogue and it's like a conversation, you know, but there's endless types of conversation. The conversation can be more fluent, more stuck, more angry, more happy, whatever, you know, whatever it brings, this is your improvisation. You know, you don't need to channel the conversation. You let the conversation go, even if the going seems like, you know, not the type of going that you wanted to have. Okay. Again, there's like a very, Barry Harris, which we use is work in the playlist. I put him a lot. He's a jazz musician, wonderful teacher for improvisation. He's always saying, you know, technicians should be excellent. Improvisers should aim for average. You know, it's a really, really, like, you know, you don't need to go with like kind of this big grandiose hopes. You know, you go for normality. And because you improvise, you realize that this normality can become, you know, so many things you didn't think about. So as we are shooting for average, let's now take this process of deconstruction and let's kind of spread it or stretch it over 3 songs. Okay, so these songs are relatively short because I don't want also for you to get too much stuck in one conversation. But basically, we're doing first song, full internal dialogue, okay? Full sentences, asking, saying stuff, saying yes and to yourself and so on. Second song, word from each sentence or question and answer. Third song, the internal dialogue stays in your head and you just move. Clear? Clear, clear, clear? Yes? No, one more time. Yes, no problem, one more time. First song, internal dialogue and movement. So like my first demonstration with the wooden ceiling, okay? You ask questions, you say statements, and you try to answer with yes and to bring more questions so the situation opens. Second song, like we did now, you continue the internal dialogue, but you every time say just one word. So instead of asking, Tom, what do you think about putting your hands inside water? I'm just inside water. Okay, so I'm just like minimizing and keeping just like an essential part of this statement or this question. And then the third and last song, the internal dialogue is only in my head or only in my body. So I'm not saying anything, but I continue to work with it, with this idea. Okay, more clear now? Yes, go like this. People, we're getting a little bit more challenged, so I want to make sure everybody understands. Nice, good. The song that we will use very, very, very appropriately, okay, will be, we arrived there, I don't know which song is it in the playlist, but it's Cadenza for Beethoven by Johannes Brahms, okay? Then we're gonna go, this will be first song, then it continues to Jungle Gymnopedia by Yo-Yo Ma, and ending up with Miss Jackson by Outkast, okay? The first 2 songs are fugues. Fugues are improvised ways to develop themes, okay? So first 2 songs will be wonderful to accompany an internal dialogue. Last song will be by Outkast that are very, very known for their style of creation of dialogues, okay? So you take out your dialogue, but you allow Outkast's dialogue to enter into the space. Okay, so these 3 songs can really accompany well. Again, first song, Cadenza for Beethoven by Johannes Brahms. Then it goes to Yo-Yo Ma, second song, and then Miss Jackson. It's basically where we were in the playlist. I just don't see the number for some reason. Okay, let's do it. Okay, and start coming back, people. You can, a few more seconds to finish it. Or you want to add something?
No.
Okay, so no, Jose pointed out that the work with the internal dialogue is can always bring some kind of mental weight. Okay, there can be mental effort, it's totally fine. Okay, I want to still retain a little bit more the clarifying. Okay, basically, I want to give a little bit of a mirroring the first part of the class that we did. So for me, the breath and the internal dialogue, there would be kind of course, it's not clear categories, it's fluid, but the breath and the internal dialogue, this is what connects us to the meditation in the interplay, okay, in the improvisation. So this is kind of the happening, that kind of the integrations of what I perceive, the breath and the internal dialogue. And then the external stimulus, so today we had like the tennis ball and the pencil, and we're starting to talk about music, okay, that I want you to really think that the music can be something to play with, like the tennis ball and like the pencil. It's not something that we need to know how to play with, just to play with, So the music, this would be, that's it to play with, okay? So of course, it's not, it's not two categories clear. There's a lot of overlap, but kind of like internal dialogue as a meditation and music as play, breath as meditation, external stimulus, which can be balls and pencils. Tomorrow we're going to work with water, but it can also be whatever it is that that you like to play with, like another body, gymnastics ring. What else is cool? Broomsticks. I know people like to play with broomsticks, or if I will continue the list, I will say something inappropriate, so I will stop here. But whatever you like to play with, okay? So external stimuli. Breath, internal dialogue, music. The meeting point, that's our improvisation, that's our interplay. So now I want to a little bit challenge you on how we play with the music. And I think that according to time, it's probably going to be the last thing that we do today, or maybe one last open session, but let's see. So I want to open up this start of kind of musical terms, okay? So we're going to bring the heavy cannons tomorrow. Fugue, etude, everything with that is the French word is already like, heavy shit. Today, let's keep it a bit more light, okay? We're gonna start with rhythm and flow, okay? Simple, rhythm and flow. So the idea that I wanted we work with to make it really, really clear is that basically the rhythm will be movements and stops, okay? It's like hitting. I move, I stop. I move, I stop. I move, I stop. I move, I stop. Okay, there's the music, there's plenty of hits, plenty of movements and stops. So it can be like, the drums, or it can be something which is a bit more melodic. We had some yo-yo ma, like, and so on. Okay, good that I'm not also giving a singing workshop. Okay, but basically, movement, stop, movement, stop. This will be our rhythm. Okay, the flow will be never stopping. Whatever hits I hear in the music, I circle them instead of stopping them. Okay, so this will be the flow. So rhythms will be a bunch of kind of broken times, broken motions. Flow will be one long continuous thing that never stops. Okay, we're going to do a musical exercise that I do with myself a lot. Okay, we're going to take 4 songs, which actually is the same song twice, and then a variation of the same song twice. We're going to do first song, rhythm, then exactly the same song, flow, okay? Then we're gonna use variation of this song and we're gonna do rhythm again and then flow again, okay? We were keeping it very framed for now in order to clarify it, okay? But again, of course, I'm saying in a disclaimer, the intention is to use it as something that is improvisational, which doesn't have a clear difference, okay? I chose the song Messy Star, okay? It's something possible, but unfortunately, pop music of nowadays doesn't have enough tones to learn any fucking thing. Billie Eilish making all of her music on a single tone, and it's like, you know, I cannot teach anything with this. So I used Messy Star, you know, which is a bit more 90s. I'm sorry if you weren't so much of a music fan back in the day, but if you see, we have Fade Into You by Messy Star, so twice. It's the same. And then there's a remix by the Avener, which I think he does wonderful remixes. And then it also goes twice. Okay, so we have 4 songs. Again, first one, we dance just with the rhythm. Second one, just with the flow. Third one, again, just with the rhythm. Fourth one, just with the flow. Okay, people? Is that clear? Yes? I'm gonna go for like kind of a, it's like almost 15 minutes. So, I see no clear. No clear? Somebody did no clear? All is clear. Yeah? You sure, people? Yeah, rhythm stops. Flow, never stopping. Rhythm, flow. Again, Kuba. Kuba, what is not clear, please?
Sorry, just wanted to ask, what song do we start with? I didn't catch that bit.
It's okay, good. Messy Star, Fade Into You.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
And then it goes like it goes twice, and then the remix. Yes, Misa. What's the question?
Sorry, the Wi-Fi got a bit tilted. So is the rhythm to the music, or just my own rhythm and my own flow, or the music rhythm and then the music flow?
Nice, Misa. Use the music, okay? You know, ideally, there's supposedly I chose something. This is why I say I chose something that is not atonal. So there's many rhythms to the music. Use the music, play with the rhythm of the music and the rhythm of your body. And then when you flow, also play with the flow of the song. Okay, so it's kind of like it is a musical task. Cool. Okay, people, let's try it. If not, it will get clear on the way, I hope. Okay, people, and slowly, slowly start coming back. Okay, so nice trip. I mean, I'm glad to see you hung in there. So basically, the ending today will be after we finish kind of this Zoom meeting. So each one of you will do the ending on their own. And before I will say what is the ending, I want to give one last chance of anything you want, if some people want to ask something or share something, yeah, to ask or share. Vincent.
Kim.
What?
Kim.
Rose said what?
This
Where's
is
Kim?
confusing. I'm Kim,
Vincent
but
is behind.
Vincent is behind. Kim is in the front. Okay, so Vincent and Kim. Yes.
I don't know if I can put it in words, but I will try. I'm a bit on the trip of the difference between improvisation art and movement research. And having seen some of your work, your movement research is amazing. And I'm the entire time trying to so where's the difference? Where's the overlap? Is there a difference? And I'm curious. You have thoughts to add to my question?
Yeah. Nice. Look, I will sincerely, there is a difference, and the only way that I can really articulate it is if you would have come to a class, or if not only I don't only research in a class setting, I also teach, or if we would have researched together, that you would understand a little bit the difference. I would say that probably I think improvisation is a practice. It's not so much of a research, because the idea of research is to research something. So you take something familiar and you check what also can be there. In improvisation, this is not a possibility. This is a fundamental. You must kind of research. Therefore, it's not, there's nothing to talk about it because it's there, yes or yes, first of all. But I don't think that in improvisation, there's findings. From research, there's findings. I'm finding some things that then I can, hopefully at the end of a research, sometimes not, but I can define something. I can define a certain path. Improvisation, I don't have findings in improvisations. I have experiences, so I'm keeping it in an abstract form. Again, pragmatically, there is difference, and you can even think about the concept of repetition is different in improvisation. In research, in repetition, you look for similarities. In improvisation, in repetition, you look for differences, even within the repetition, So there is differences. And I also, it's a little bit similar to what I said before. I'm really happy that you're inspired by me kind of pursuing these things. And I will tell you, the best thing you can do is tell yourself, okay, I understand that this guy has something really strong about research and something really strong about improvisation, and he sees them differently. What's my difference between research and improvisation? If this can lead you to kind of, to go with this, two ideas, this is the best that can happen. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got a little bit, while practicing now, I got a little bit the image of now feels like the space to apply my languages that I already acquired and to communicate through them and to have stories through them. But it's not, I didn't find the space within it to expand my language, so to say, or to make a different language.
Yeah, look, research, for example, needs to happen within a genre, within a style, within a, it needs a strong fulcrum, a strong base to lean on a research. Then improvisation, the best improvisation is styleless, So did you want to add something?
No, I mean, maybe it's even more wide, but sometimes it's because there is so much overlap that sometimes I feel that it's a matter of mindset, just as easy as a mindset of researching.
Or even a researcher.
Or a researcher.
An improviser.
because it's true that there is a lot of overlaps. And now what I think that is the most different is, yeah, my mindset towards how I approach it.
But, but I have to say, I'm saying this confidently because I see, for example, I see a lot of familiar faces in the workshop, and most of the familiar faces that I see, people who have worked with me extensively, more in the realm of research. You know, until now, I was reserving the improvisation more to my creative career. And now I'm feeling that I'm a bit more, I'm mature enough to also share it pedagogically, you know, but I do feel that there is a difference. Again, biggest recommendation, and as Rosé said, explore the difference in mindset, in practicalities, in definitions. And
I mean, actually, because you are already taking a workshop, and Tom, it's creating like the context and the conditions and the task and the proposals, you are actually researching.
You confuse the guy. I mean, it's enough with this, all this, what we did, balls and pencils and rhythms, and now you tell him that.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a good question. Anyone else? Anything you want to ask? Anything you want? David. Yes, please.
This is going just slightly away from the course, but I would love it if you could just briefly expand on that comment you made about Buto and things being, what was the word you used? The sort of meaning of your life at the center. Yeah, if you could just briefly go back to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's connected to the course because a lot of my my input improvisation was developed in my training in Buto. I trained with a teacher that his name is Yoshito Ono. He passed away last year. He's the son of Kazuno Ono, that basically is one of the two founders of Buto. Look, Buto, the Buto, there is the kind of the traditional more school that is talking about certain ideas, certain aesthetics, and like kind of the writing of these ideas. So a lot of these ideas are very heavy: death, life, birth, gender. And the aesthetics are probably, you've seen people that like, you know, shave their whole body, white clothes and all of this. Yoshito was more about the idea of improvisation. And it's not drifting too far from these topics because it's kind of like improvising in a way that you kind of go and you create every time a relationship that is extremely primal, you know? So it's like we used to take, you know, simple movement task. You carry, you know, we carry a bucket of water, you carry a flower in the room, and then like you're gonna go to the first experience of you ever seeing a flower. And then like, you know, wondering if this also will be the last thing you will see in your life, if it will change the way you walk with the flower. Boom, let's go, let's research on this for 30 minutes. You know, things of that sort. And I've done it for a couple of years. And, you know, it has a lot of very interesting things that, you know, back then when I started, it was like, okay, Buto is about all these heavy topics and slow movement. But then you little by little, I learned, just like I learned with acrobatics, funny enough, that it's not a discipline of its own, is actually the possibility of seeing this heavy meaning with, you know, any time that I practice, which is great. It's not, you know, it's not heavy, on the contrary. You know, I come to a practice and it's like, okay, let's you know, rebirth, and the end of the practice, I kill myself and I start a new life tomorrow with the next section of practice, for example. You know, which is again what happened to me also with acrobatics, that, you know, people told me there's acrobatics, there's dance, and then like, oh, I fall every time I fall, there's a possibility of acrobatics, for example. You know, so Buto served me in this way in improvising. So nowadays, even if I do something very, not all of the things that I do have such this like kind of big pathos of meaning, but I'm able, because of Buto, to play with this heavy meaning. It's very relieving. You know, I fall on the floor, boom, dead. Last movement I've done in my life. Or not, and I get up. You know, this is something that I give the credit to Buto. So this is why I a little bit bring it. Of course, that what I'm trying to convey in this workshop as improvisation is not so much focused on this. We look at this as a tool. In Buto, it was like, let's go and just take everything out except for this. It's also very much fitting Japanese character. the time that it was born, this school of movement, you know, post World War II, blah 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 blah. A lot of context. And for me, I feel that I treat it a little bit differently. But I hope this answers your question to a certain level.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Rodrigo also had a question.
Yeah. First, thanks. I'm learning indirectly from you for a while, and to learn directly, it's really nice, really an honor. Thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's a simple and personal observation, but when we were doing the internal dialogue and putting it out and mixturing with the movement, for me, it was the opposite. That when I was trying to improvise, I was trying to block the internal dialogue always. And for me, it was a big relief. Like, I was like, oh, how didn't I do this before? It was like if I was vomiting some things that were inside, and it was like a relief. Yeah, just this.
Great, thank you for sharing. I mean, I think it's, you know, it's a valuable question to ask. Why do you block it, and if it's valuable for you? Because I also say again, you know, everything here is like, I think that to release the internal dialogue is one of the most potent tools of improvising, or finding, like, you know, new experience of the moment. Sometimes people, not always that's what they're looking to do, and then, you know, you block the internal dialogue. I can give you an example. When you drill, usually the internal dialogue needs to be put aside. If I want to kind of, like, you know, refine something or improve something, you know, I need to kind of, okay, I'm giving up feelings, pains, existential thoughts, and I'm just like placing my hips above my feet, hips. Then I put the dialogue aside, you know. But I think usually the question with this, with mindsets, is, does it serve me, and when does it serve me, you know? So I think this is a kind of, that would be probably my advice of next level of exploration. Ask yourself, why do you block? And, you know, maybe the blocking serves you, okay, also possible, but maybe you can mix it up. Totally personal. Okay, people. Bren, we'll do 2 more. So Bren.
Hey, so my question's a little more from earlier when we we're doing a little more focus on the breath.
Yeah.
And I found for myself sort of, and this is generally the pattern, that, you know, earlier in the practice, it's a little hard to get engaged, and later as we go, we get deeper into it. And for me, it seemed like it was very tough to maintain the full engagement and also the focus on the breath. And so at the beginning, I had the attention on the breath. And then later I was fully engaged. Like basically, once we started doing the task with the ball, I was fully engaged with the task, but I never really had both at the same time. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to what extent, you know, are you able to totally engage in both? Is there an alternation? I'm curious your experience.
Yeah, well, Bren, it's a very good question, okay? And personally, I totally identify with you, okay? Like, I have similar experience, but I do believe that I need more practice. Because, for example, I know that you, for example, you do already for a few good years Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know? So when I trained, for example, with Rickson Gracie, you know, and he was talking also with his son, Kron Gracie, and they spoke about being aware to the breath while fighting. And I believe, and also my physical experience of moving with these people, is that their awareness to the breath is so much greater than mine, while doing really, really, like, you know, fighting again, which is the moment that you totally, and then again, I'm giving just this example, like, you know, I can go on, but I don't want also to take too much time for examples, but like, there is, I believe, the potential of having much, much more awareness than what we feel that we're capable of naturally. But it is a matter of practice, you know. Again, how many times, and, you know, I can tell you with you, how many times I played with the ball and I forgot about it. And then the question is, what do I do when I forget? Can I bring up this internal dialogue of, like, you know, you forgot, pull it back to the breath? or I'm just like saying, no, you know, it doesn't, it's natural that I forget. So you know, so I let it go, you know. So I believe that, for example, Hickson and Cron Gracie, what they did that other probably fighters didn't do, that they more times when they were in this moment, they're like, no, I will pull my awareness back to the breath. And doing this over time, I believe, you know, and also this is based on my experience of meeting people who invested in this, that this capacity has much more potential than what I experienced personally. Okay, makes sense? Okay, last one. Yes, Carmen.
Hey, I have one reflection from the last exercise we did with rhythm and flow. Like what I realized when I think of flow, I think of two ways of flow, like thinking about free flow, a flow that can't be really controlled, that keeps going, that is informed by gravity and then gets into motion, and bound flow that would be in a more condensed way where we will be always in control of the flow, even though it will be always continuously moving, but I am capable of stopping the flow. So that would be, for me, it would be bound flow. So then I came to, like with the second song when we did it, that rhythm basically for me meant bound flow. So the being in a constant flow, but being able to control the flow and stop whenever I wanted to. So then in the end, like rhythm and flow are actually the same, just with different textures. In a way, like that's what kind of like informed my last improvisation now.
Yeah, thank you. It's a very interesting way to look at it. For me, I feel that in movement, this kind of like, you know, rhythm and flow are very, very good basic to and I can even use how you said it. It's two basic textures, okay? You need to be, it's kind of like I would start from the textures of being able to stop and then giving up this ability, you know? Now, when you start to understand both a bit more deeper, this is when open up other more complicated textures. This is a little bit, tomorrow we will touch it. For example, fugues, which is like, you know, using the rhythm and flow to develop a theme and then go back to a bit more of a basic rhythm or a basic flow, you know, so kind of like deviating and coming back. So I think it's what you say is a very kind of the experience that you had is very coherent with kind of what I'm proposing. I can also tell you that, like, because I'm like, we're practicing these two ideas for a long time, we usually, the definition change. Actually, the performance of it doesn't change for me so much. You know, kind of, I feel that like I go back into the same type of movement with rhythm and the same type of flow, movement with flow, but I feel that the definition change, you know. So I think that what you gave now is a very valuable definition in that sense.
Just like to maybe like to, I don't know how to say it, but like, because I have the feeling that you refer to flow, like there is how you define it, there was a certain mirroring to nature somehow, at least this is what I felt. Nice. And then, for example, within here, we're practicing flow in relationship to music, you know, so like and I think that this more like a direct relationship probably tomorrow will give you another kind of insight of what it can be flow.
Yeah, so it being different definitions in different contexts as well. Yes. Yeah, yes. Especially when I translate it back into German, then it also changes again the meaning. So like these kind of things.
Yeah. Which I think that already to be aware of how the context can change the meaning of certain words is like great.
Okay, people. So let's finish with this. Okay, I think it was a nice kind of nice reflection. So thank you everybody for asking and sharing. I want you to do, as I said, we will finish the session. I recommend you don't have to, maybe it was enough for you for today, to do one last ending on your own, okay? So today what I want to propose is that the ending will be kind of to use the last song to exploit something that was very interesting for you from today. So if you feel it was really interesting for you to work with the ball, use the last song to work with the ball. If it was really interesting for you to do the rhythm and the rhythm and flow, use it for rhythm and flow. If it was really interesting for you, even now, something that came up, you know, the breath of Hickson Gracie, or the rhythm and flow in different languages, or, you know, being looked at by the space, the child, whatever that you felt was really interesting for you, use the last song to exploit it, okay? And I want to hear reference a good friend of ours that he's practicing improvisation with us. He's a dancer and choreographer by the name of Maji Sera. So we were, he came to our house a couple of days ago and we improvised. And we were again thinking, okay, let's do an ending. And we kind of followed something like this, you know, I proposed this thing of the interest. And then he told me, it's like, so basically we're writing a poem. So I was like, what? He was like, yes, basically we're writing a poem for the class. I was like, that's a stretch. I mean, he's such a clever guy. I always like his proposition. So I was like, can you explain? I was like, yes, if you're really, really interested about something, it's a poem. And then he said it, and I was like, that's one of the best definitions for poems that I've ever heard in my life. It's like so simple and practical, and it takes out all the bullshit. I buy it, okay? So I think that you can also think about this. Maji said as proposition that like what you're really interested with is a poem. So use whatever from the class that you want to make a last poem. And I also give you a choice. It can be a hardcore ending or a bit more easy ending. There's 2 song possibilities that are both always inspire me to finish and write poems. Then it's the 2 last songs on the list. Maggot Brain by Funkadelic, which is 10 minutes, or Keith Jarrett Live in Cologne Part 1, which is 24 minutes, okay? If you're hardcore, go for Keith Jarrett. By the way, both of those, I highly recommend to see the story behind them because they're both wonderful stories about improvisation. So for the hardcore, Keith Jarrett Live in Cologne, 24 minutes poem, a bit more easy, Maggot Brain, 10 minutes poem. And if you've had enough, you know, this is also, you know, you can let it go at this point. So that's it, people. Thank you very much. Good luck with your ending and see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm.